Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for the Monday Q&As. So let's knock this out. First question. Hey Jason, what is the most important health markers for good health in the long term and longevity? Subject to a lot of debate. My own opinion on this, just based on my own observations, my own understanding of the human body. Number one on that list is going to be your fasting glucose, because if you have insulin sensitivity issues or you have any issues with high fasting glucose or hypoglycemia or prediabetes, anything like that, you are massively predisposed to other health problems in the long term. It will contribute and spiral out of control over time. That's going to be number one on the list. Number two behind that, I'm going to say your HDL cholesterol, not your total cholesterol. Total cholesterol isn't as important as it's been made out to be. Your HDL levels. So if you have a high HDL, you're going to tend to have much better heart health in the long term. So and a low HDL is potentially a problem. So that's going to be next up on the list. And then behind that is going to be blood pressure. People who suffer from high blood pressure are going to be predisposed to a lot of issues. So if those three health markers are good, odds are you're going to be healthy, have good longevity, you're going to do pretty well. Those would be the three that I would look at the most. All right, next question. What's your opinions on calisthenics as a tool to get fit? P.S. And those guys who are all shredded, muscular, and claim to only do body weight movements. All right, being shredded is a matter of just having low body fat. Your diet and your total energy intake are really what determines that. Not really the type of training you do, but there's nothing wrong with calisthenics. They certainly have their place as supplemental exercises for everyone from athletes to people who just want to get in shape or look better. However, the inability to really balance muscles, to balance your physique, to properly load with micro-loading and things really make calisthenics an inferior tool. They're just not as versatile as regular resistance training with free weights are. They just do not offer as many advantages, and while they're okay and they're certainly useful and have their place, they can't really compete because they're just not as versatile and useful for all of the micro-loading and balancing everything out. They can't really compete with weightlifting, and I'm a big fan of doing weighted body weight movements. You guys see me do a lot of weighted chin-ups and things in the training videos and the old training playlists and things. I'm big on that sort of stuff. I'm big on glute ham raises, weighted glute ham raises, weighted dips, weighted chin-ups. I love all of those things, but they would never be the core of my training, even if I wasn't a power lifter, even if I was just trying to get big and strong. Just for the reason that they don't offer enough versatility, and you don't have everything that you have access to with free weights. It's just not comparable. Certainly nothing wrong with them, but if they're the only tool in your toolbox, you're just being silly. There's no reason and no benefit. There's no reason to limit yourself like that. All right, next question. BCAAs, useful or useless? For those who don't know, that's branched chain amino acids. Going to depend. Obviously, you need them in your diet. They're essential for not only survival, you would die without any in your diet, and they're very anabolic, and so they're obviously useful. So I'm going to assume you mean supplementing additional ones. It really depends. It absolutely depends. For someone who doesn't train really hard or long periods of time, isn't doing mixed training, they're probably not going to do very much for you. However, if you're someone who's training twice a day, or you're some sort of mixed athlete where you're doing strength training and cardio in the same day, taking things like branched chain amino acids, maybe intra-workout or between them, or particularly intra-workout during very long training sessions or between training sessions, if you are doing a mixed training like that or doing multiple sessions per day, does seem to have some benefit for lifters and athletes who are doing that. However, keep in mind that isn't everyone who trains, so it really depends on your individual needs, but they do seem to help with recovery for people who fall into those categories, so I might recommend them for them. So it just depends. All right, next question. Squatting twice a day, morning and afternoon, 3 days a week, or squatting once a day, 6 days a week? Which frequency should carry over to a better increase in size and strength in a more linear style over months of periodization, such as cycling techniques, volume, weights, etc.? Also, assuming one of the training schedules above is being used, should I be in a caloric surplus? Well, yeah, if you're squatting 6 squat sessions per week, you probably need to be in a caloric surplus in order to recover from that, unless you're on a pretty hefty amount of anabolic drugs. If you're doing that drug-free, yeah, you're going to need to be eating, and you're going to need to be sleeping a lot to recover and adapt correctly. Now, as far as the actual frequency there goes, as far as adaptation windows and muscle protein synthesis, I'm going to say the 6 sessions spread out more, doing them once every 24 hours, is probably going to give you better results than doing 2 in each day to where you have 12 hours apart and then 36. You're simply going to get better overlap in your adaptation, more muscle protein synthesis uptime. You're going to have more benefits to doing it 6 days a week rather than twice a day, 3 days a week, if I had to pick between the two. And I'm not saying the difference is going to be large between the two, because the difference between even squatting 6 days a week versus 3 in and of itself is fairly small. But there is a difference, and there is emerging data starting to show that. All right, next question. I tend to get DOMs on my lower back after deadlifts. I recorded myself from different angles and my back is neutral even on the heaviest sets. Does it still mean I'm probably using bad form? No, if you're seeing it in the video and you can tell that your form is good, then no, it's probably not bad form. There's going to be a few things that are going to cause DOMs on your deadlifts. Number one, you might be deadlifting too infrequently, and that on any exercise can cause DOMs because a certain muscle group isn't getting worked frequently enough. That will tend to have a higher rate of DOMs. Number two, you could be doing simply too much volume for your current ability to adapt and recover, which in a given training session can cause DOMs as a result of doing more volume than you can really handle or more than is ideal. So maybe you should cut the volume slightly and increase the frequency. Or number three, and this is going to be very, very suspect depending upon the person, but it sounds like maybe your core is a little bit weak. If you're getting lower back DOMs from deadlifting and you know the technique is good, then maybe you need to do more ab and core work in general just to help strengthen that area and see if that sorts that out for you. That would be my first fix, but I would look at the other factors as well. All right, next question. When I try to move the bar as fast as possible on my big compounds, as you and Greg Nuckols have advised, I find that the fatigue is quicker and I sometimes can't get as many reps as normal. Should I still try to move it as fast as possible anyways? I'm assuming you're trying to become a stronger, more powerful lifter, in which case, yes, absolutely. Why would you intentionally train slow if you know that speed equals power? Now, this is where workloads start to break down and people talk about measuring tonnage in things instead of things like RPE. It's the problem we run into when we just map things as pure tonnage. You can get more tonnage moving the weight slower. However, you're also recruiting less motor units and less muscle fibers as a result of it as well, because the faster you move a weight, the more muscle units you have to engage, the faster you have to turn on upper threshold muscle fibers. You're actually doing more high quality work. You are having to work harder to move it faster, and that's why you get fatigued more quickly. So even though you can get more reps by moving it slower, that's where issues of things like time under tension really start to break down, is because we simply know that you're recruiting more muscle fibers and turning on more motor units more quickly if you're moving the weight faster. So therefore, it is giving you a better training stimulus, and training yourself to be able to lift a weight faster will give you more power in the long term and let you lift heavier maxes or exert more force more quickly if you need to out on the playing field or a real world scenario. So you should always be trying to train fast on the big lifts as long as you can do so with proper technique and form. All right, next question. What are your thoughts on perfect form versus heavyweight when training as a beginner, intermediate, and advanced lifter? Where is the most important, and when does it change in relation to the lifter's needs and their state of progression? All right, that is a really good question. You guys know that I want to see novice lifters doing textbook perfect form. I want to see full range of motion, everything pause. I want to see them pause on their chest on the bench. I want to see them go to parallel or lower on the squat. I want to see everything done perfect, textbook form, no technique breakdown. That's because they don't have the support muscles to really get away with mistakes without higher chances of injury. They don't know their bodies well enough to find their grooves that are going to give them better leverages or stimulate certain muscles more that they're trying to develop more. So textbook form is the way to go for the full novice. Now, somebody's completed something like my novice program. They've hit all my novice numbers. They're in the intermediate stage. I think that for most people, when you reach the intermediate stage, that's when you can really start fine-tuning your technique and your form in order to get more development and more strength of finding things where you can do cheat rows a little bit, where you can mess around and use improper form a bit more, a lot more thoracic rounding on the deadlift, all sorts of little things that a lot of people may not like that are considered just putting a little English on it. Finding your individual body's biomechanics that make the most out of those is something that should be done as an intermediate. But it's because at that point you have well-developed support muscles, you usually have a strong core, you know your body, you're less likely to injure yourself, and you're more likely to be in tune with your body at that point. so that you're not just using shitty form for the sake of using shitty form. You're actually finding things that are going to stimulate adaptations better for you personally based upon your biomechanics. And if you're inexperienced, you're just not going to be able to do that correctly most of the time. All right, next question. I have an issue where one shoulder will shrug randomly. I guess like this. This can happen if I curl or doing normal daily activities. Any idea on how to correct this? Well, my first advice to you, that is not something you should be asking me on YouTube. You should go see your doctor, your general practitioner. Have him look at it and maybe consider referring you to a neurologist, because it sounds like you've got a possible pinched nerve. And involuntary muscle contractions like that can be indicative of other very, very serious life-threatening health issues, or at least debilitating issues that if you catch them soon enough, you might be able to help yourself not be nearly as disabled later in life as a result of them. So if you're seeing signs like that, I would immediately go see a physician. Let them assess it, because if you have something like MS or some sort of neurological degenerative disease, if you don't catch it early on when you're seeing the early signs, you could be in a lot of trouble later. So something like that should scare you enough that you should go see a doctor, not be asking someone on YouTube. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.